They assembled at dawn. Elite military marksmen from every branch. The target waited at a distance they deemed impossible, 2,800 meters through desert heat shimmer. Physics has limits, the chief instructor declared. But so do your assumptions. One after another, the finest shooters missed their mark. Nobody paid attention to the quiet technician with the data tablet in the corner. Nobody watched her handle equipment. Then came the crack. A perfect strike. The impossible accomplished. Who made that shot? The major thundered. All eyes shifted to the maintenance clerk they'd overlooked all morning. Suddenly, everything they believed they knew crumbled. At Camp Pendleton's Advanced Marksmanship Center, an assembly of the military's most skilled precision shooters gathered on a sweltering California morning. The air shimmered with heat waves rising from the concrete. As Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Stone surveyed his hand-picked collection of special operations snipers, his weathered face remained impassive as he studied the assembled operatives, each selected from units that officially didn't exist. A target stood at an extraordinary distance, 2,850 meters far, beyond what conventional wisdom considered achievable. Heat mirages danced between the firing position and the target, their wavering distortions making accurate ranging nearly impossible under the brutal desert conditions. "Gentlemen and ladies," Stone announced through his megaphone, his voice carrying across the silent range. "This target represents theoretical limits. I don't expect success. I expect you to learn your boundaries. In operational environments, understanding when not to engage is often more critical than engagement itself." In the background, Dr. Elena Novak moved quietly between equipment cases, mid-30s with unremarkable features and auburn hair tied back in a practical knot. She wore technical support credentials on a lanyard. Nobody noticed how carefully she observed each shooter's methodology, how her eyes tracked atmospheric indicators, or how she occasionally made precise notations in a weathered field journal. She was background noise, part of the support infrastructure that enabled these exercises. Never worthy of acknowledgement, the instructor's condescension was palpable as they prepared the demonstration. "Expensive way to waste taxpayer bullets," one muttered loudly enough for all to hear. Others nodded in agreement, their expressions suggesting this was purely academic theater. Gunnery Sergeant Rafael Cruz stepped to the firing line first. A legend among precision shooters with 5 deployments to Afghanistan, Cruz commanded more confirmed eliminations than anyone present. His reputation preceded him, and junior marksmen clustered nearby, eager to absorb his expertise. "Watch closely," Cruz announced, settling behind his customized Barrett M107A1. He made an elaborate show of calculating adjustments, verbalizing variables as he worked. Wind speed fluctuating between 15 and 18 knots, quartering left. Humidity at 22%. Barometric pressure steady at 29.8 inches. Elena glanced up from her tablet, her eyes narrowing slightly as Cruz performed his calculations. Her fingers moved almost imperceptibly, as if making microscopic adjustments to invisible controls. Cruz fired. Through high-powered optics, observers watched his projectile impact sand nearly 4 meters right of the target. "There you have it," he announced to his audience, showing no disappointment. "Physics doesn't negotiate. That target's purely theoretical under these atmospheric conditions. Even with perfect mathematics, there are too many uncontrollable variables." Throughout the morning, marksman after marksman failed. Some came closer than others, but none achieved acceptable parameters. A young Army Ranger managed to land within 2.5 meters, earning approving murmurs from the cadre. "Best performance today," Stone noted, "but still operationally meaningless." Elena continued her quiet documentation, occasionally glancing up as fragments of conversation drifted her way. "Who's the lab coat with the tablet?" a young Marine asked his partner, not bothering to lower his voice. "Equipment maintenance or something," another replied dismissively. Probably calculating how much money we're burning on impossible shots. The Marine chuckled. Bet she's never even held a weapon. Their conversation shifted to weekend plans as Elena moved past them, her presence forgotten as quickly as it had. Registered. She paused near ammunition containers, recording inventory data while her eyes carefully tracked the shifting patterns of heat distortion as midday approached. Not a single round had landed within 3 meters of target center. Shooters grew increasingly frustrated, some questioning their equipment, others blaming conditions. Colonel Stone seemed almost satisfied with the results. "Remember," he told the assembled marksmen during their break, "this exercise isn't about achievement or failure. It's about recognizing the absolute limits of possibility." During the intermission, the operatives clustered in small groups, sharing combat experiences and technical discussions. Nobody noticed when Elena slipped away, briefly walking toward the equipment bunker where reserve weapons were stored. She returned minutes later, her tablet still in hand, her demeanor unchanged. "Afternoon session commences in 5 minutes, Stone called out. "Same parameters continue." The marksmen returned to the line, their enthusiasm somewhat dampened by morning failures. The afternoon sun cast harsh shadows across the range as training resumed. Each shooter approached with renewed determination, making minute adjustments based on morning data. Gunnery Sergeant Cruz attempted a second engagement, spending nearly 20 minutes on calculations. His shot landed closer to 2.1 meters from center, earning appreciative comments from observers. "That's approximately optimal, people," he announced, rising from his position. "Sometimes you must accept that certain targets exceed current technological capabilities." Colonel Stone nodded agreement. Crucial lesson for operators. Recognize your limitations. Don't waste ammunition on impossible engagements when lives depend on your decisions. The afternoon progressed with results consistent with morning failures. Elena remained in the background, occasionally verifying equipment serial numbers or logging ammunition expenditure. Any careful observer might have noticed how she positioned herself with clear sightlines to atmospheric indicators during critical moments, how she timed her movements with shifting environmental patterns. As the sun began descending toward the horizon, Colonel Stone consulted his roster. "Final shooter," he announced. "Where's Staff Sergeant Williams?" "Sir, she was recalled to headquarters," a corporal responded from the group's rear. "Something about an intelligence briefing with the general." Stone nodded. "Understood. That concludes today's exercise. Tomorrow we'll analyze data and discuss practical applications for..." A tremendous crack echoed across the range, cutting Stone off mid-sentence. The target, which had withstood hundreds of rounds throughout the day, exploded in a perfect center hit, its core section disintegrating in a spray of debris and dust. Silence descended over the range, then chaos erupted. "Who fired?" Stone demanded, his composure shattered. "Which operator discharged without authorization?" The marksmen looked at each other in confusion. Nobody had heard a weapon discharge except for the impact sound. Range officers frantically checked logs, trying to determine who had occupied which firing position. Through spotting scopes, observers confirmed what seemed impossible: a perfect center mass hit at 2,850 meters. "Check the southern ridge," Cruz ordered, grabbing optics. "Someone's running games from an alternate position." Range security radioed confirmation that all perimeters remained secure. No unauthorized personnel had accessed the training area. Impossible ballistics calculations filled whiteboards as instructors tried to comprehend what they had witnessed. The shot defied known physics, at least as they understood them. A young Marine finally spoke, pointing toward the equipment area. "Sir, I observed her, that tech support woman. She was near the weapons bunker when the target exploded." All eyes turned toward Elena, who stood quietly beside equipment containers, studying her tablet as if the commotion was unrelated to her presence. Colonel Stone approached Elena, towering over her slight frame. His face had reddened with confusion and anger. "Ma'am, did you discharge a weapon on my range without authorization?" "Yes, sir," she replied softly, her voice barely audible above the murmurs of gathered marksmen. The murmurs transformed to disbelief, then suppressed laughter. "Impossible," scoffed Gunnery Sergeant Cruz, stepping forward. "That engagement can't be accomplished with standard equipment. What system did you use?" "An 24 SWS, she answered, naming the standard sniper weapon system. "Serial number 77,849 from Storage Rack C." The laughter intensified until Stone silenced them with a glare. "This isn't entertainment, people." He turned back to Elena. "Ma'am, I need to examine your credentials again." Elena reached into her pocket and produced her identification. As Stone studied it, his expression transformed completely. His eyes widened and he straightened suddenly, snapping to attention. "Gentlemen and ladies," he announced, his voice now carrying respect that hadn't existed before, "we have been in the presence of Major Elena Novak." The name meant nothing to most assembled marksmen, but several senior operators reacted immediately. A Master Chief from SEAL Team 8 took an involuntary step backward. A Marine reconnaissance sniper whispered something to his colleague, who let out a low whistle. "For those without appropriate clearance levels," Stone continued, "Major Novak was the primary marksman for Operation Shadow Step. Distinguished Service Cross recipient, though you won't find that in public records." The laughter had died completely. Several operatives exchanged nervous glances. "The Belarus operation," one whispered to another. "That was her," came the whispered reply. 4 targets, 4 shots, 4 kilometers. Through a blizzard. I thought that was just legend." Colonel Stone returned the credentials to Elena with considerably more care than he had taken them. "Major, I apologize for not recognizing you. Your assignment to technical support wasn't in my briefing materials." "That was intentional, Colonel," Elena replied, finally meeting his gaze directly. Her voice remained soft, but had acquired clarity and authority that commanded attention. "Operation Shadow Step was terminated 2 years ago. Some personnel were reassigned. I prefer maintaining a low profile." "But that shot," interrupted Cruz, his earlier mockery replaced by professional curiosity. "Even accounting for wind, Coriolis, effect, humidity, it shouldn't be achievable. What am I missing?" Elena considered him momentarily before responding. "You're not accounting for thermal layering in the barrel, micro-atmospheric density variations along the projectile path, and spindrift relative to ambient temperature gradients." The technical terminology silenced even the most experienced marksman. Elena's quiet expertise had suddenly transformed her from invisible support staff to something else entirely, someone whose capabilities exceeded their comprehension. "I'd like to review your calculations," Stone said, gesturing toward her tablet. "They're in my head," Elena replied simply. "They always have been." A new voice interrupted their conversation. "In your head," repeated a man in dress uniform approaching. From the base direction, Commander David Park, Air Force Intelligence, strode toward the group with purpose. His presence at a training exercise was unusual enough to raise questions. "Commander," Stone acknowledged with a nod. "I wasn't informed you would be observing today." "I wasn't observing," Park replied coolly. "I was waiting for exactly this moment." He turned toward Elena. "You couldn't resist, could you, Major?" Elena's expression remained neutral. "The exercise parameters were flawed, sir. Someone needed to demonstrate actual limitations." Park smiled thinly. "Always the perfectionist," he addressed the group. "For those wondering, what you witnessed wasn't luck. Major Novak holds the confirmed long-distance elimination record, classified above your clearance levels." The marksmen exchanged glances, re-evaluating the unassuming woman before them. Several shifted uncomfortably, remembering dismissive comments they had made within her hearing throughout the day. "Operation Shadow Step," muttered one of the older SEALs. "I thought that was classified mythology." "It was very real," Park confirmed, "until budget cuts and political considerations led to its dissolution 2 years ago." Elena finally looked up, meeting the eyes of assembled marksmen for the first time. Her gaze was penetrating, analytical, as if she were still making calculations. "I wasn't always technical support, gentlemen. When Shadow Step was terminated, some of us were redistributed." "Wasted," Commander Park said with undisguised bitterness. Major Novak was the program's lead operative and eventually its chief instructor. 31 confirmed eliminations beyond 2,500 meters. 0 operational failures. A young Army Ranger stepped forward, his professional curiosity overcoming embarrassment. "But how? Even accounting for environmental variables, what you accomplished shouldn't be possible with standard equipment." Elena hesitated, glancing at Park, who nodded permission. She walked to a portable whiteboard used for the day's calculations and erased existing formulas. With quick, precise movements, she began writing complex equations. "Standard ballistics only account for these variables," she said, circling familiar formulas the marksman had used all day. "But there are tertiary effects that compound exponentially." Her hand moved rapidly across the board, adding layer upon layer of mathematical complexity. "You're factoring barrel harmonics?" Cruz asked, moving closer to the board. "And microclimatic." "Layers," Elena confirmed. "There are currents, pockets, and vortices. If you observe patterns long enough, they become predictable." For 30 minutes, Elena outlined methodology none of them had encountered in training. She explained how to interpret subtle environmental cues, how to sense heat direction rising from terrain, how distant sound could provide valuable atmospheric data. "You were all focused on the target, missing the shot," she concluded. "True precision isn't about hitting what everyone sees. It's about seeing what nobody else can." The operatives were silent, absorbing information that contradicted years of training. Even Cruz, the most experienced among them, looked thoughtful rather than skeptical. "Why technical support?" he finally asked. "With your capabilities, you could have written your own assignment anywhere." A shadow crossed Elena's face. "Shadow Step had casualties," she answered carefully. "Some operations change you." "Belarus," said Park, his voice suddenly gentle. "You don't need to protect them anymore, Elena. Those files have been declassified to these levels." Elena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The marksman waited, sensing they were witnessing something significant. 2 years ago, Park explained, a high-value target was identified in Minsk, Belarus. Multiple agencies had been tracking this individual for orchestrating attacks on American assets. The elimination window was narrow 8 minutes of exposure with the target surrounded by civilian shields. "Blizzard conditions," added one of the senior snipers who seemed familiar with the operation. "Visibility near 0, Park nodded. "Every agency declared the shot impossible. 2,900 meters through weather that grounded all air assets." Major Novak volunteered. "You had spotters?" asked a young Marine, clearly impressed. "None," Elena said quietly. "Spotters couldn't penetrate the storm. I used meteorological data and mathematical modeling to predict target positioning." 4 shots, Park continued. 4 confirmed eliminations, the primary target and 3 security personnel simultaneously neutralized. No civilian casualties. "That's not possible," Cruz said, but his tone lacked conviction. "The official after-action report classified it as statistically improbable," Park acknowledged. "Some suggested exceptional fortune. Those who knew Major Novak knew better." "But something went wrong," prompted Colonel Stone, sensing more to the story. Elena turned away from the group, her gaze fixed on the distant target range. "Intelligence was compromised," she said flatly. The security personnel were the target's family members. Heavy silence fell over the group. They were armed, Park pointed out. They had participated in their father's operations. They were children. Elena said with quiet finality, "My calculations were perfect. My intelligence was not. After that, I requested reassignment." The mood shifted palpably. These hardened operators understood the weight of such mistakes, the toll they extracted from even the most disciplined minds. "So you buried yourself in technical support," Stone concluded. "Until today, I had no intention of revealing myself," Elena admitted. "But listening all day to discussions of impossible shots and physics limitations when I knew otherwise. Pride," Cruz said with unexpected understanding, "gets the best of us sometimes." Commander Park checked his watch. "Colonel, I need to debrief Major Novak. Then I believe she should return to quarters." It's been a revealing day. As Elena gathered her tablet, the marksman watched her with transformed perspectives. The invisible woman had become their focus. Some appeared ashamed of earlier dismissiveness, others intrigued by what they had learned, but all regarded her with newfound respect. As twilight settled over Camp Pendleton, Elena sat alone in her sparse quarters. The small room assigned to technical personnel contained few personal items: a photograph of mountain scenery, a worn paperback of Seneca's letters, and a small wooden box carved with intricate geometric patterns, the day's events replayed in. Her mind, 2 years of careful anonymity had evaporated in a single moment of professional pride. She had stepped out of the shadows she had deliberately sought, and there would be consequences. Inside the wooden box lay a single brass shell casing, polished to mirror finish. She held it between her fingers, feeling its weight, remembering the shot that had both defined her career and ended it. The casing from Belarus. From the moment everything changed. Sometimes the most dangerous people are those no one sees coming. But sometimes, Elena reflected, they choose to remain unseen for good reason. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions about whether to emerge fully from the shadows or retreat deeper into them. The choice, for now, remained hers to make.